We are back on Morning Line. It's our final segment with malpractice attorney Clint Kelly. If you'd like to join us, the number's on the screen, 737-7587. Any questions for the man? And Clint, listen, we spent a lot of the show talking about COVID and all of that. We just wanted to ask you right now if there were any other developments in the malpractice world locally that you're dealing with or that you want to throw out there to our viewing public they need to be aware of.
Sure. There is a case right now I'm working on involving Vanderbilt, and it touches the COVID a little bit in that people are not going to the hospital or the doctor as much as they used to because they're scared of COVID, and that's an understandable fear. But the problem is there are people who need scanning, CT scanning, to prevent certain ailments. And in one case I have is with a man who's got cancer now, and it's inoperable. And he is 60 years old, he's a realtor, and he's probably going to die within the next year or two. And this was totally preventable because the doctor who was in charge of his care at Vanderbilt didn't have the man come in and get scanned like he should have. And, the guy's like, look, COVID didn't scare me. I'd be glad to go to the hospital and get checked, but the doctor never told me. The doctor was just out to lunch. I mean, I've read the medical records, and the doctor is having some personal problems, which is a whole nother subject. I've talked about some of these doctors that probably don't need to be practicing anymore. But, people need to go back to the doctor. People need to go back to the hospital when they sense there's something wrong, when your body's telling you there's something wrong, even if the doctor or the staff at the hospital aren't pressing it as much as they should. I don't know if I'm explaining it really well, but that's one of the unfortunate consequences of the situation we're in right now. Is there are people that have diseases or conditions like cancer that could be treated and even prevented if they went to the doctor. And that's what's happened in this poor man's case. Is he went 8 months without getting scanning, and had those scans been done, the cancer would have been detected, it would have been excised, and he would have lived a full life.
Oh, that's awful. So, and you just said a moment ago in the prior segment that the outbreaks of COVID-19 in hospitals very limited, okay, because they do such a good job washing. So you would say, yeah, don't be afraid to go to a hospital or a doctor if you think you need it right now, and just take the same precautions you would if you're going anyplace else. Wear your mask, observe, when you're going in there, if there's a big crowd in the lobby, stay back until it clears out. But go for it, right? You consider it to be as safe as other places you may have to go if you take precautions.
Sure, because in more instances, the vast majority of times, even if you catch COVID, you're going to survive it, okay? You're not going to survive stage 4 cancer. You're not going to survive a blood clot in your lungs. So it is so important for people to go get medical treatment and not fear this disease, because the hospitals are clean. We're not hearing about outbreaks there for a reason. So people need to go and follow up and make sure that their healthcare needs are being attended to prevent the unfortunate fate of this client I've got. And as I said, Vanderbilt screwed it up. I'm not letting Vanderbilt off the hook. I'm just saying that because people have this fear of going to the hospital, it's preventing people from being monitored as they should.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you this, as we're all waiting for a vaccine to come about, and a lot of companies are rushing toward that, and the word rush makes people worry. What kind of vaccine are we going to get when it comes out first? Not sure I'll be right in the front of the line to get that, but is there liability, or will there be, or are there laws in place there that if for some reason one of these vaccines is approved and gone ahead and then starts being given widespread nationally to millions of people, and then a bunch of people start getting sick with something that should have been detected had they gone through the proper safety procedures, could there be liability there, or is that something that these companies will be forgiven because they had to rush it here and we took a shot?
Yeah, it's very similar to the COVID liability immunity bill for businesses and nursing homes and hospitals that Tennessee passed. It's virtually impossible to hold a vaccine maker liable in a court. Now, there's what's called a victim compensation fund. I think it's called the Immunity Compensation Fund, which allows people to submit a claim if they're injured by a vaccine where it's determined that the vaccine is dangerous. But the fund doesn't pay very much, Nick. It certainly won't pay someone's future lost earnings or their future medical expenses throughout the rest of their life. I'm going to call it a token sum of money, so they get something out of the fund, but they're not going to be able to get full compensation. The policy interest was we want manufacturers to work hard to get a vaccine out. but the people deserve to have a safe vaccine. And, the point that you just made is an important one. How many people are going to have confidence in that first vaccine?
I guess and I cue off you a lot, Clint, on a lot of things where I'm going to the doctor, how I make my decision on this. I've learned so much from you. I'm just wondering, how are you going to handle that when those first vaccines come out? What will you look at and how will you decide whether or not, and I know you believe in vaccines as I do, but that it's going to be safe in this instance?
If the drug manufacturer and the FDA give the green light, I'll tell you how I know. If Dr. Fauci says it's safe, I'll be front of the line.
Okay, I'm kind of the same way. I'll listen with Dr. Fauci. I'll also listen to some of the experts over at Vanderbilt who are involved with this as well. Dr. Schaffner, who's a foreign, and he said before, by the time it gets to that point and is approved, we're convinced it'll be effective. But yeah, I'm kind of like you. I'll be wary at first, but you bet if one works, I want to line up for that. Real quick, as we wrap things up, there may be other individuals that didn't call in because we were on this COVID thing as much as we were today. But if someone feels as though they weren't given the standard of care they should have received, all right, the idea is they should call you. And again, there's always a statute of limitations on malpractice cases, right?
Yes, it's a tight window. It's 1 year from the date that you discover you're harmed, but don't wait a year. There's no need to wait. I mean, the call is free, it's confidential, and you don't pay anything unless I recover money for you. So it's one of the best deals you ever get. I do that because people who are injured by medical mistakes oftentimes don't have the ability to pay for much of anything else other than put food on their table. So if you think, and you know it in your gut, if there's been bad care, patients are really smart. They know when they're being, they know when they've had careless conduct that's injured a lunch. You just pick up the phone and call my office, and I've got staff there that will take the information and provide it to me. It's entirely confidential. I'll make a judgment whether I think it warrants further investigation. If it does, I'll take the case. If it doesn't, I'll put a letter in writing to you explaining why I didn't take the case, and no one's ever going to know, and it doesn't cost anything. But the important thing is to make sure that you have your claim evaluated, because the courts are there for a reason, Nick. They're there to help people if people have had or been victims of wrongdoing. And there is plenty of medical wrongdoing out there, unfortunately. It's just the system we have right now. That's not going to change for a long time.
I'll get your contact information up in the last segment of the show, so folks should get their pen and paper ready for that. But real quick, Ron just had a quick follow-up question we'll squeeze in before we wrap things up. Ron, what's your follow question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question up for him. There's a doctor in Huntsville, according to Channel 19 News, that was shut down in his business in Alabama, and he came to Tennessee, and he's got a license in Tennessee till 2021. It's still good. He's still operating up here in Tennessee, and they got him on indictment charges down in Huntsville, Alabama.
All right, real quick, we got 2 minutes, and Clint, you've talked about this before. Doctors that you know for a fact have gotten in trouble here in Tennessee, and then they just go someplace else to another state, and maybe they don't know it, and they start practicing all over there, nice, fresh, and new.
Yeah, I want to look up Ron's story in detail and find out a little more what he was talking about, but I think I know what he is talking about, which is there are doctors who get in trouble. They start developing a log of bad cases, malpractice cases, reports to the state, and then hospitals begin to let these people go, and then they have trouble setting up shop in different cities, and then the board of medical examiners in that state says, sorry, you got to go. Well, when the doctor leaves and goes to another state, the other state where he applies for a license, unless the previous state actually lets the other state know about all of the facts involving why that person was suspended and ultimately had their license revoked, the other state won't do anything about it. And they intentionally don't talk to each other, Nick. And they do it because these doctors, they want their brethren to have another shot somewhere else. That's what this is all about. And so just like some of these nurses that go from hospital in one state to another state, doctors go from one state to another state, they're protected by the system, and it's a code of silence.
Is there any way, real quick, is there any way that you as a patient, if you're going to a new doctor, can find out whether or not he or she has come from another state under those circumstances?
Very rare.
That's
it's
great.
rare. It's hard to find that information.
Yeah. It's a tough situation. Go with your referrals, find someone who has a track record and the like. And you have a good track record yourself, my friend. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you again soon, okay, Clint?
Thanks, Nick. Stay safe.
Take care of yourself, my friend. We'll take a break. We'll be back. Programming note right after this and contact information for Mr. Kelly.